The note was waiting for me on the dresser in the bridal suite. White paper, expensive ink, yet dripping with spite. I didn't even need to open it to know who it was from. The handwriting had haunted my entire childhood. One single line cut through me like glass. "Let's see how you stand in front of the guests without us there." And tucked inside 2 first-class tickets to Paris. My parents' names printed boldly. The departure time set exactly when I'd be walking down the aisle. They weren't simply skipping my wedding. They wanted the world to watch me crumble. They wanted humiliation written into the fabric of my happiest day. But what they didn't realize, what they never bothered to ask, was who I was really marrying. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time I mistook their cruelty for care, their silence for discipline. I was the little girl left standing at the school gates, watching other parents pick up their children while mine were nowhere to be seen. Birthdays slipped by with cards arriving months late, if they arrived at all. Every ounce of praise, every proud smile, belonged to my brother. He was the heir, the golden boy. I was the afterthought, invisible even when I succeeded. And still, for years I carried hope. A fragile hope that someday they would finally look at me and see something worth loving. But by the time that envelope arrived, any remnants of that hope had long turned to ash. The signs had been there for weeks. My mother's sly smile when she asked about wedding costs. My father's sudden obsession with once-in-a-lifetime trips. And the hotel manager's accidental email confirming their Paris suite, scheduled exactly on the day I vowed to start my new life. That was the moment I understood. They weren't merely absent, they were making a declaration. "We'd rather toast champagne under the Eiffel Tower than stand at your side." Did I cry? No. Did I scream? Never. Planned. Because revenge doesn't always take fire or fury. Sometimes it only needs patience. I stayed quiet. Smiled when they spoke of busy weekends. Pretended I was the gullible daughter they thought I was. I let them believe their trap was flawless, that I'd walk down the aisle abandoned and pitted. Meanwhile, I was laying the foundation of my own triumph. My fiancé's family, wealthy, powerful, untouchable in ways my parents could never comprehend, stood behind me. They didn't just own businesses, they owned skylines. And with them, I prepared not just a wedding but a spectacle. One the world would witness. Broadcast live. Written about in the very magazines my mother once clipped recipes from. Daydreaming of someday being featured. They wanted me humiliated. Instead, I would make them watch as I was exalted. The day arrived. Cameras lined the church. Reporters whispered into microphones. Guests floated in wearing couture gowns and sharp suits. Every flash of a lens, every headline written, was another nail in the coffin of my parents' plan. When the doors opened, silence swept the room. My veil trailed behind me like a storm cloud, my steps steady, my heart steel. The orchestra swelled, and for the first time in my life, the world's eyes were on me, not as a shadow, not as a burden, but as the center. Meanwhile, 30,000 feet above, my parents sat smug, picturing my humiliation. But the airplane screens betrayed them. My wedding streamed live, my face filling the cabin, my vows echoing across national television. The nation watched me step into a dynasty, the missing chairs at my side screaming louder than their absence ever could. By the time the ceremony ended, my ring glinting under the lights, my phone erupted. 65 missed calls. Their names flashing one after another. Mother, father, brother. Again and again. I didn't answer a single one. They wanted my tears. Instead, they watched my ascension. Later, I heard they cut their Paris escape short. The whispers, the shame, the endless questions were too much to bear. They returned, pretending concern, hoping to rewrite the narrative. But I already knew the truth. They never wanted my joy. They wanted my dependence, my weakness. I never gave it to them. They once tried to visit my new home. Security turned them away. They left letters. I burned them. Now they sit in silence, the very silence they forced upon me all my life. Except this time it isn't my cage. It's theirs. I still think about that envelope sometimes. How confident they were. How sure that I would shatter. But they forgot one thing. I don't shatter. Endure. Arise. And when my moment comes, I make sure the lesson lasts forever. They will never erase the vision burned into their minds. Their daughter, radiant, celebrated, immortalized on screens, while they sat faceless on a plane, fleeing the very life they tried to deny me. So yes, I ignored those 65 calls. I'll ignore the next 65 and the 65 after that. Because my silence now speaks louder than any words I could ever give. And in that silence, they finally understand the truth. They lost me. For good.